Deep within the dense forests of Canada, hidden far from the bustling cities, lies an abandoned cabin. It stands alone, shrouded in mystery and silence. Locals have long forgotten it, and the forest has grown around it, swallowing it whole. But even now they say that cabin holds a dark secret. Ethan was an adventurous traveler from Australia, a thrill-seeker who roamed from place to place, searching for stories and experiences to last a lifetime. This time, his journey brought him to the rugged wilderness of Canada's forests and mountains. But he had no idea that this trip would turn into a nightmare he'd never forget. It was just before sunset when Ethan arrived at the cabin, eager to explore. The sky was a warm, dusky orange, and the shadows stretched long and dark. The cabin itself was old and weathered, surrounded by thick, towering trees with strange symbols carved into them, almost like warnings or marks left by someone long ago. But Ethan didn't care. He didn't believe in ghost stories, in myths or legends. He thought it would just be another adventure, another night to remember. He didn't know that this night would haunt him forever. As the night grew darker, the forest around him fell silent. A strange chill filled the air, and that's when Ethan heard it. A faint sound, like a whisper on the breeze. It was so soft, almost like it was hiding within the silence, and it seemed to be calling his name. Ethan. Ethan. Ethan stopped, looking around, but saw no one. He brushed it off, thinking it was just his mind playing tricks. But as he stood in the darkness of the cabin, the whisper grew louder, clearer, like someone was right beside him, breathing his name in his ear. The next morning, Ethan left the cabin, shaken but determined to ignore what had happened. He stopped by a local cafe in a nearby village where he met a woman named Lily. She was friendly, a local who seemed to know a lot about the forest. And when Ethan told her where he had stayed, her smile faded. Lily told him, "That cabin, it's cursed. There's something dark there, something that haunts it. People who stay there, they never return the same, or they don't come back at all." But Ethan just laughed it off, thinking it was just an old legend. He told her it was all probably in his head. Still, the excitement got to him, and he invited Lily to spend one more night with him at the cabin to prove that it was just a story. As darkness fell again, the cabin seemed even more oppressive, the air thick and heavy, as if something unseen was closing in on them. Ethan and Lily lit a small candle, but as they settled in, the candle flickered, then blew out suddenly, leaving them in almost complete darkness. And then the whispers began again. "Don't come back. Leave this place, or join us." Ethan tried to brush it off, but Lily looked terrified, her eyes wide as the voices surrounded them. Soft at first, but growing louder and louder, Lily asked Ethan, "Ethan, did you hear that? That voice?" "It's right here," Ethan said. "Maybe it's just the wind. Or maybe we're both just letting the stories get to us." But deep down, they both knew something was terribly wrong. And then, Lily remembered something her grandmother had told her as a child, a story about the woods and the spirit known as the Whisperer. People say that long ago a shaman was exiled by his own people. In his rage, he cursed this land, saying that anyone who entered would be bound to it forever, unable to leave, unable to live. They say he still roams this forest, calling to those who enter, waiting for them to join him. As she spoke, Ethan and Lily felt the air around them grow colder. Shadows began to shift and twist in the corners of the room, and the whispers grew louder, forming a shape, a figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowing with a ghostly light. "You have come. Now. You will never leave." Ethan's heart pounded as he realized they had nowhere to run. The doors wouldn't budge. The windows were shut tight. In desperation, they held on to each other, and Lily began to chant an old prayer, one she remembered her grandmother reciting, hoping to break the curse. The shadows began to waver, flickering as if the spirit's hold was loosening, but the darkness only grew stronger, the voice angrier. The next morning, villagers arrived at the cabin, but Ethan and Lily were nowhere to be found. All they discovered was a single camera, left on the floor, still recording. And in its final moments, a shadow loomed over them, dark and terrifying, right before everything went black. The locals watched the footage in horror as the final words echoed through the cabin. "Stay away from this place, or join us." And that was the last anyone saw or heard of Ethan and Lily. The story of the cabin is now an old warning that echoes through the village, one that asks anyone who dares to listen, would you step into that cabin in the woods?